So he comes right. So we start hearing in the in the late 2000s, Eminem's supposed to be coming back, right? So I remember hearing those announcements. How were you guys feeling about him returning to the game? When once these things started going out and there's going to be an album, what do you, before you even hear any music, what are you guys thinking?
You
at
talking
this point,
like Kamikaze era or
no, like
Relapse,
this is like Relapse.
like
This is like
Relapse,
2009.
Relapse to present.
Okay, I didn't care. Sorry.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, go ahead.
I mean, I had some anticipation, but it wasn't like I'm like, oh my gosh, I need the M album. Like I wasn't like scratching feet, like, oh, where's that new Eminem at? But I had some anticipation. I would just wonder how he would be. Was it going to be more somewhat the Eminem that we kind of knew, or was this going to be more like encore Eminem? That's extended. At that point, so there was some anticipation there, but it wasn't one thing where like I gotta have this new Eminem album, right then and there type deal. So I had some anticipation, but it was very minimal, to say the least.
Yeah, I was more so.
Oh, go ahead, Mr.
Oh yeah, I didn't care, but I was more so like by this time, you just fan of Eminem as a person. You know what I mean? Like you see what this guy's going through, and you just like, yo, man, I just wonder how is he as a human, like as a human being, like you know what I'm saying, especially with all that stuff put in public, but.
Yeah, because the headlines had by this point in time, we heard about the proof loss, which probably furthered his drug usage, right? And you know what I mean? I mean, he was already on the drugs, and then his issues with, because I think he got married to Kim again in that in the hiatus at some point. I don't know, I could have the timeline wrong, but I could say
no, I think at one point, then the divorce, and then you had the Royce situation, D12 situation going on too.
Yeah, his world was crumbling. Yeah. They
crumbled by Ja Rule.
Yeah, but you know what, man? They outnumbered they outnumbered Murder Inc. hard as hell, man. Between Prime Eminem, Prime 50 Cent, they brought Busta Rhymes into that shit. Like, yeah. But I would say once you get to like the Relapse era, before without even hearing the album, I was so uninspired by mainstream hip hop by that time for years that Eminem coming back actually made me a little curious, because who was popular at that time to me were not the nicest MCs we've ever heard. So what happens is I was like, you know what? I was actually looking forward to Relapse because it was kind of like a relativity thing, because I knew at the very least I was like, Eminem can rap. I was like, he is a proven MC by this point, So that's why now this is me not knowing what Relapse is going to be, what his next project is going to be. So this is where I was at, because to me, he was about to be proof that like the guys who are popular right now are not the level of MC that people make them out to be. Right. But so like Relapse drops, he goes the horrorcore route, and the album is not really well received. Right. I mean, he's rapped. I'm telling you right now, he rapped his ass off. He rhymed his ass off. But he dropped an album that, with those other albums, especially like with an Eminem show and the Marshall Mathers LP, he felt like kind of current, but in his own lane in those times. With Relapse, I think he went too left. It's a niche album that years later people have given it more credit, but it wasn't the comeback that people were hoping for. You know what I mean? I know that it kind of it backfired a little bit on him. So I mean, I don't disagree that with the general consensus of the conversation around it, that people were like, but it's just interesting because that album has kind of gotten years later it wasn't, it was maybe when it didn't come out at the right time, but when you judge it, Brandon, you said something in a previous episode that I've always agreed with. When you can judge something outside of its era, you get a different experience with it. Now, I'm not like top 5 in this album, but I understand what people mean in it. And maybe it's just hardcore Eminem fans, but there's a population of people who actually love Relapse because of that horrorcore element, right? And that's not for everybody. The horrorcore is not for everybody. Yeah. So, I mean,
he's definitely in that horrorcore lane. We got an episode on that too coming. You know what I mean, this year hopefully. But I think with Eminem, like it really made me think about like what is it with him, and I think that like what separates him, we don't even talk about Eminem when we talk about like the bigs of that era, you know what I mean, like the J, Nas, X, And I'm
and
like,
it's funny because he was the biggest thing, right? Isn't that weird? He gets
right. Like,
so when I'm not put on this list, this shit does not offend me. He addressed it.
Right. And I'm like, yo, Nas and Jay-Z and DMX, like if they were all in the room or if they were all on the stage and you bring Eminem in, I would bet money that Eminem would get the biggest roar from the crowd. And I think it's like, it goes back to that thing, maybe a tie with X, but like how people respond.
He was bigger than X, bro.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, he was bigger than X, you know what I mean? So it's like how people respond to you. And I think that's his like gift that like is greater than any MC we've witnessed. It's like how people respond to him. You know what I'm saying? Whether if it's great, lackluster, and like that's the difference. Like I think that's what makes him special. Even when we posted for this episode, like with little to no content, you know what I mean? We really kept this kind of like very brief. Even the attention we got on social media just because it's Eminem. You know what I mean? Like he just got that. You know,
think about when Busta Rhymes brought him out to do the BET, the Touch It remix, and he was the surprise guest. Crowd lost it. Lost it.
Oh my god! And I love him. That's my favorite Eminem. Honestly, to answer your question.
Yeah, that's mid 2000s. He was
remix Eminem is just another level.
Oh man, on that Warriors remix, the part 2 with Lloyd Banks. Jesus Christ.
He was definitely in that pocket.
And any feature or remix to me. Because I always feel like Eminem is like the kid where I'm like, he don't feel like he fit it. You know what I mean? So it's like when you invite him in, he's like, oh shit, I'm invited. All right, I'm killing everything.
Yeah,
he has to stand out twice as hard. Yeah,
where like, I need to destroy you on your track. You know, during that era. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how are you guys? The nicest. Yeah. So how have you guys? Right, his post prime has been heavily criticized. How do you guys feel like from Relapse on to now? How have you guys felt with everything he's released, whether it's solos, side projects, soundtracks? How do you guys specifically feel about his post-prime? Because it hasn't been celebrated. It has not been very celebrated.
I look at it almost like the post-J, post Black Album, where he's been hit or miss. But unlike Jay, I think he's been more miss, than hit. Like I said, I personally like Relapse. I understand why people like because of the hardcore, but as far as the rhyme scheme.
Oh, you said you like Relapse.
No, I did like Relapse.
Oh, okay. All right, I didn't know that.
Why, yeah, but I understand why people didn't like because he had the accent going on. But if we're talking about wordplay, this pure lyricism. Outside that one track, you talking about Stepfather, what I mean?
Insane.
Yeah, I never cared for that track, but I just think on a lyrical standpoint, that was kind of type of M I liked. With that said, when he started doing the double time flow and everything else and tried to do more singing on the hooks, that kind of checked me out completely, because it's almost like, to me, when I think about good double time rappers, I think about like the Cool G raps. I even like Royce, he can do, there's a lot of good rappers who double time, but they know when to do it. Like M was almost like, I don't care if you're rapping about this, I'm going to cram as many words, many syllables that I can, but we already know he's elite. So to me, it's like you have nothing to prove at this point. This should be your victory lap if somebody wants you on a track or whatever. Probably like the only post Eminem feature I really like.
Probably Forever.
And that and the Caterpillar. Track.
Caterpillar was mean.
Caterpillar Roy. So because I felt like he did it, but he did it tastefully. And obviously the Bad Meets Evil, I think Royce kind of kept them in check. As far as you're going a little overboard here. Dial it back, but outside of that, like when we talk about the Marshall Mathers LP2, all that, I couldn't really listen to those albums through because it was just too much. And I'm like, you're not good at it. That's not your strength.
I will disagree on Kamikaze. He had it very well balanced. It's a very focused.
Kamikaze was only about 45 minutes too.
And that was one thing I felt. I felt like he had a career of too many 70-minute plus albums after like his best stuff, and that was the first album after Revival bombed because like Revival was him just going too pop. Everything he used to be against, he was starting to do. And I say when he got to Kamikaze, shortening the album, and he had some. That's one thing people don't realize. Like when Eminem is focused and when he's firing back at critics and stuff like that. I mean, he was doing that in his prime, and to me, I think that's why that album is largely focused. He cut the time in half. He had his targets and he just went right at it. But he has abused the double time flow. And it's just, and he doesn't have to. He's had instances where he didn't do it and he actually sounded fine when he did Darkness, when he did the intro on Music to Be Murdered By, where he's relaxed, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's crazy because, you know, his flowing ability on Relapse was still prime level, you know. After that, you hear little by little, you know, what's it called? It starts to kind of move away from what it once used to be. He also said, though, and this is like he actually has holes in his brain from taking so much Ambien. So that's why I don't think we're ever getting him back, because he actually has like some type of like brain damage from all the drugs he did, right? So how can you actually ironically, he has a song called Brain Damage. And he actually so I don't think he'll ever be able to fully get back to it, because like your brain has been like affected, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's a real
like that's actual. Yeah, it's not like, oh, you're uninspired and stuff, right? Like it's just, yo, like your brain it doesn't function the same way as it did. So that's the only thing. That's the only bummer about it. People say he needs to get back on drugs, you know, but it's like, no, that'll probably finish him if he does that, you know?
Yeah, yo, you took my I was going to mention Kamikaze. I think that's the best example I got, you know, from, you know, I'm gonna say like post prime Eminem. Like half the album I really enjoyed. And like the track with Joyner Lucas, he kind of was like stepping into that, like I don't even know. I'm gonna just say like the Lil Durk flow, you know what I mean? But he sounded good doing that, like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have mind Eminem like playing with that flow for like more than just that one song. You know, the little Migos rap, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a double time, but it's like it's like more melodic-y and but I really enjoyed Kamikaze. Like I said, it kind of fell short, kind of like when you get to the end of the album, and like that damn Venom song. Good Lord.
Yeah, Venom. That should have been left off. Yeah, Venom. They bonus tracked it. I think it's the last song. Yeah, because it's also on the Venom soundtrack. But it was just like should have left it off. Yeah, like that one. That's when he's doing where it's just like not really it. But yeah, man, like, you know, him like his second half of his career, he did the exact same thing that happened to Nas, Jay-Z. I'm forgetting somebody, maybe not Kendrick, where when they came back, their albums missed the mark, right? He bounced back with Recovery, took a new direction, and then a year later he does Hell the sequel, right? Like he does the, you know, so he's having a nice bounce back with Recovery and even Hell the sequel, which was a project, short to the point, you know what I mean? And what's crazy is during this run, these albums are still selling 3, 4, 5 million. You know what I mean? Like with the exception of Hell the sequel, but he gave Royce his first gold plaque and his first #1 of his career. You know, comes back to the Marshall Mathers LP2, which this was the era where everybody was doing sequels just because it was like the marketing plan. So I remember I was just like, don't title it Part 2. You know what I mean? Another album that's a little too long. There's good music on there, but it's just a little too long. He got into his Beastie Boys bag with that one. There's a lot of like rock influences on there. Revival was when he actually came down from he just like, it seemed like everything he did was always this would sell millions. This was the album that kind of actually, and it didn't happen until 2017, where like the commercial side started to fade, right? He comes back with Kamikaze, and then which brings us to the music, and then after that he follows it up with the Music to Be Murdered By. He did a side A and a side B. I felt like side B kind of wasn't a necessary release, but the Music to Be Murdered By was the side A was actually liked a little more than I would have expected from people. You know, there's moments on it I like, but like he did that, and then now we're here, right? Where he does Curtain Call 2, right? And I got to be honest, like when the announcement of it came out, I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit, because I feel like greatest hits in general have kind of been like, I guess I'm trying to understand what's the value of a greatest hits project in the streaming era. You know what I mean? The only thing I thought of, and this is me splitting hairs, I'm reaching on this one, was, you know, I don't know if it's an attempt to gather what was deemed his best post-prime work, repackage it and introduce it to a new generation. That was the most I could think of in terms of what was the value here, because like 90% of the music on there has been out. You know what I mean? When you look at the track lists, you know?
I think something goes to be said, like, you know, Gang started with Full Clip. LL Cool J did All World, right? And then he came back with All World 2. I think that it is a nice kind of condensed way to, because a lot of people, like, you think about collectors, like, especially like in the vinyl world, there's something to be said with like,
the super fans are going to want something. Yeah.
Those box sets. And it's a nice way to like reintroduce him if he's thinking about getting active again, like, you know what I mean? And I think too, like, I think it's just, what do you call that? It's just like one of those things that you kind of are expected to do. Like, if you don't got a box set somewhere in your discography, then like, kind of what are you doing? You know what I mean? So I look at it that way. I get what you're saying, Ray, like, you know, streaming wise with the younger fans, but I think this is a play on, like, this is a legacy.
Legacy collectors. Yeah. Like, I mean, well, do you guys, so like, yeah. Well, I'm still scratching my head a little bit. Yeah. Well, but go ahead, Renz. Yeah.
I don't question it, but I look at, and I'm looking at cross genres now. I look at like Red Hot Chili Peppers or how Metallica did their stuff. So you had your initial greatest hits, which he had with Curtain Call. Usually when you get artists do their second greatest hits, that's when they're pretty much calling it a career, you know, at that point. Or, you know, I might be but sporadic. Like, he's still actively still doing music, you know, for all intents and purposes. So he's not like in a Jay-Z zone right now, per se. So me with Curtain Calls too is kind of like, hey, I'm just trying to maximize, you know, on the stream. Because I look at it like, had he said, hey, you know, I'm going to kind of just do other endeavors now, and I'm kind of done with the whole making albums, so be. But we already know he's still probably working on albums. It might not be something we're going to have soon. So when I hear Curtain Calls too, I look at more of a money grab.
And it didn't even do big numbers. Yeah.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
It did like 45K.
And I look at the song. I mean, I didn't even really listen to, because outside of maybe some of the new cuts, you know what I mean, a lot of those songs is on there. I wouldn't look at, hey, this is the upper echelon of Eminem. You know, at the same
Curtain Call 1's like, if you're comparing it, like Curtain Call 1 as a single disc is better than Curtain Call 2 as a double disc. And you know what sucks? Go ahead.
No, and I'm gonna say the other thing. Also, when you see some of these guys do their second greatest hits, they still have some from the previous first ones that they already knew this is still the cream of the crop. But here's some other ones that might be second tier. So this is strictly, you know, Relapse to now, and it's almost like I would have half of these songs here, or good 85%, I wouldn't even say this is one of his best work. You know what I mean? So it's almost like a force thing.
He could be just trying to, like, you know, say, listen, yo, y'all ain't gonna just do me like Tupac. I'm gonna usher and release this out the way I feel like it should be coming out.
Point, you know.
He might just want to take ownership of his own stuff while he's in the forefront and cares about it. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking at it like beyond music, you know.
What I wish he had did was when they announced that it was a double album, I really wish that he had kind of taken a similar approach, not an exact approach to like when Michael Jackson did the History album. It was a double album. One disc was greatest hits. One disc was the new album. I wish that he had did one disc greatest hits, one disc rarities and unreleased joints, because there's a stretch of time from like after Encore, probably up to like maybe Relapse and Recovery, where there's a bunch of songs that are like on YouTube and stuff that got leaked. They're like from the street. They're like Straight to the Lab mixtapes. There's like a 1 and 2, and there's good stuff on there, and it's not mastered or stuff like that, but like his flow still sounds awesome. He sounds pretty focused. He has a joint with Jasmine Sullivan that should see the light of day called Cocaine. Like what's it called? Yeah, like he has material from that era that I would have loved to have gotten, kind of like the Lost Tapes treatment, where you get it mastered, you put it out to really remind people like, yo, like, you know, this is the other stuff, because I think people looking for it on YouTube have found it, but the masses who, you know, that are only going to really stream stuff, I think that would have been a good balance. Hits on one side, and then your actual look, this is me just rapping, this is me not trying to make a hit record or whatever like that. I would have liked that approach a lot.
That's a good point, because even Gangstar on the other side, they had some new songs when Full Clip came out.
Yeah, he would have Full Clip.
2000. But that MJ was a good example. But how about this though? It would have been dope if he could have put out some of that Drake stuff that they had did. That maybe
I would have thought that would have been on there on the curtain call too. He had some feature stuff on there.
There's a lot of other approaches that I mean, and look, maybe the labels know something we don't. Maybe they know something on the metric side that pushing these back up is going to do something for them, right? I've never ran a label before, so I don't know, but I think we all agree like there could have been a better approach here. But yeah, you know what's interesting? Like when you mentioned like the other genres, a lot of them got more than one like greatest hits, right? Like it's weird, like they like, and sometimes, and I don't know if it's always the same labels, they'll use some of the same songs. You know what I mean?
I was saying before, like had he used some of this, okay, here's a Criminal Crop, add a couple layers to this, and that's why I saw like with like Metallica, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I had a couple of their, multiple greatest hits, so I could see, okay, here's the ones that are going to be absolute stay-ons. Versus what it's almost like here's my greatest hits from this phase where I don't really feel like a lot of them deserve that title. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I was saying that. Maybe he's just taking ownership of his own stuff while he can. I remember going into Sam's Club or the Wall or FYE Child Records buying. I would go looking for like greatest hit CDs from like Ohio Players or George Clinton, and it stuff be a joke. It'd be like Rhino Records, and it's like 7 songs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, other labels, and they'll use some of the same songs that's like on the main one. You know what I mean?
What I mean? Right. So I think that's another. That got to be somewhere in M's head. Like, y'all not doing me like that. Like,
because I would see that. Yeah. So, but now let me ask you this: of the songs that were actually new to your ears on this project, did you like any of it? Like, what'd you think? Right, he had the only song I was excited for was the 09 Is This Love joint, because it was from 2009 when Eminem was still rapping his ass off, right? Going into the album, I had already heard the joint he did for the Elvis movie and the new Snoop Dogg joint. I don't really care for either one of them, to be honest. But I think the only one he did that I really was like, oh shit, was that I liked enough was the Is This Love joint, the 09. But again, it's because it comes from a certain era. The spelling can sometimes be a bit much, but it to me it sounds like a post-prime song sound wise he should be making. I think that was the only one. Again, this is me eliminating what I've already heard and just judging the newer songs tacked on here. I think that was the only one that I know I'll probably revisit, to be very honest.
I really didn't care.
But why didn't you care, right? Like, because we have a history of ragging on Eminem.
And it's not even about ragging, but like it goes back to the same thing we were discussing earlier, as far as the mood, the changeover, and everything like that. Like, it doesn't grab me anymore. You know what I mean?
But why doesn't it grab you? Like, I'm doing this for everybody that thinks we rag on Eminem too much.
Like the double time. A lot of it's just the where he's at career wise now. Versus where he was at previously. Like, it ain't about the thing about bars, because we already know he got the bars, but it's like, it doesn't really move me. Like, I can listen to it. I can say, okay, it's cool, but I can say I'm not probably ever going to go back to it.
So it's the style of rapping that he's been doing too much.
Because like I said, it's more the style, and like I said, it doesn't really grab me. Like I understand what he's trying to do as far as manipulation and the technical stuff. Like, I can appreciate that. But as far as like a replay back value, I don't really get that for none of us, really at this point.
So I feel similar, and I'm gonna just say this: they interviewed Andre 3000. I'm gonna say probably like 6 years ago now, when he was like making, Outkast was at Coachella, right? So he was like in the public for that. And they asked him like, man, what are you doing, man? Like, when you coming out with stuff? Like, is there an album? Are you working? And he's just like, oh yeah, I'm playing a banjo, playing a guitar, you know what I mean? But
got the flute?
just doing, living my
playing
life.
Flutes at gas stations, yeah.
Right. But his take, you guys have probably heard this. He says, he said, I don't think that I have anything worthy enough to say right now. He said, hip hop is a younger man's sport historically. He said, I'm just sitting back doing my thing. And I think he was very honest in saying that I don't know if what I would put out people would be interested in. And we're like, come on, man, you're Andre 3000, bro.
Yeah. But inspiration's a real thing. Yeah,
it's a real thing.
I respect that answer. I respect that answer.
And
We've heard our greats We've heard Jay sound uninspired. We've heard Nas sound uninspired. We've heard Eminem sound uninspired. You know what I mean? Kendrick did a similar thing where he took his 5 years off early in his career because, like you said, that he wasn't inspired. I respect if you don't record or you don't put it out. Maybe sometimes they record, but they don't put it out when they're not really inspired. Yeah. But I respect that from Andre 3000 because you can dilute your legacy by doing that. You know,
for sure.
An example right here might be M. Like Eminem is in a different seat where he's a megastar, and it's harder for him to, you know, to go dark, you know, to go black and just be like, yo, I'm out, yo, I need some time. But I think this is what it could look like, where it's just that a group of your fan base is just kind of tuned out or not interested anymore, or what have you. You know what I mean? Just trying to, because I got the same answer as Zoe, but I'm trying to give you more of my why of the why.
Yeah, the why to me is important, right? Because I think like oftentimes when it's people we don't like, we'll be like, nah, I don't like it. But the why is the meat and potatoes. And I respect that answer. And guys, I just said right now, the only song that I'll probably revisit will be the Is This Love 09. And even that has an asterisk to it because like, it's cool, right? Like part of it is, I think it sounds better than a lot of his post-prime stuff that like I haven't really loved. You know what I mean? So it's like the comparison, there's a little bit of relativity there, right? Because what if I compare the one song that I think is cool to his best stuff? There's a difference there, right? So I'm in agreement with you where I think he should take a long break. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel he's diluted his catalog a bit when he didn't have to. Like I think he should take like more 5-year breaks and just let it happen. You know, like you're not gonna stay in your prime like forever. Like, and I think, you know, I would like that for Eminem, or just get back on the boards and like, look, when we did a Hang Up the Mic, I picked Eminem not just to rag on him. It's because I felt that he was actually diluting a career that was very celebrated and decorated. You know what I mean? I had the rhyme to the reason. It wasn't just, oh, I don't like this guy. No, I picked him because I went from not caring about him to, yo, I like this stuff, to like, yo, dude, now you're doing too much. You know what I'm saying? And you have a very celebrated career. So Brandon, I like that you mentioned the Andre 3000 because he did besides his Outkast output, he did his official, unofficial solo album, which is very good. And, you know, you've gotten features since then, but he doesn't force an album out. And I respect that answer. I think a lot of artists should follow that, to be very honest with you.
And even Royce spoke on that kind of too when they were asking, you know how they always act like he's Eminem spokesperson at times. And he was, but you could tell he's trying to be political in a way where he wasn't kind of shading Eminem either, where he's saying Eminem needs to find that pocket where he needs to find that middle ground. And you could probably tell Royce as MC knows that, but Royce as a friend, you know, don't want to say, hey, because like I said, on Caterpillar, I felt like he sounded rejuvenated. Like he did a little bit of double time flow, but it wasn't too forced, and it was enjoyable and was listenable to the point where I'm saying, hey, if anything, this give me another Bad Beats Evil album, but more of a full length, a more focused one. I feel like even Bad Beats Evil was a solid project, but I felt like it was kind of forced because now they're trying to get the Slaughterhouse thing going on and everything else. But when we look at Andre, we always say, "Hey, we want Andre to come out. We want Andre out." But at the same time, he also realized, "Hey, I'm not going to put an album for the sake of it. If it's going to tarnish." And now, me being older, I can appreciate that answer because that same thing with Drake. We were like, "What happened to Detox?" He realized Detox was not going to be what the Chronics were.
Oh, Drake.
So
Lauryn Hill never came back.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we look at all this stuff full circle. You can kind of understand now why some of these artists want to keep everything as is. You know, at that point.
You know, man, like I was thinking about like, was Eminem in the right era, right? Like, and I, you know, like if he comes out now, because like now we're kind of getting out of the, hey, let's feel good about feeling bad, everybody. I'm depressed. I have anxiety. I want to kill myself. Let's just be high every day and complain. Like we're in that emo phase. But we're stepping out of it. But I think Eminem, if he comes out in this era, like, was he too much for that, or would he fit right in? You know what I mean? I think he had a benefit of like he exploded 99 2000, right? I don't think there's no coincidence because it was like a lot of teen angst. You know what I mean? Like I hate my mom, or you know like I'm gonna kill family members. we just weren't saying that wasn't acceptable in the 70s and 80s. It just was not.
Yeah.
But we got to that point where it kind of became that.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking about
somebody always in the generation always likes to push envelopes and stuff, but you know, like
I don't think it works,
he was just the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, he in this era. We're in too politically correct an era.
Culture.
You think maybe too much?
Maybe the emo.
They're trying to cancel
like the drug stuff, but
they're trying to back
as
cancel
far
this
as
stuff now.
I want to the Kim song. Kim song's not going to fly in 2022. There's a lot of stuff with the mother, you know, when it fly. I think it was a perfect time because we're pre-PC era. And we're like, oh my gosh, he really said that. Let me rewind that again. You know, we were more or less like, why was he saying that? Like the emo stuff, yeah, but everything else with Eminem, I don't think works in this era. Like he would have to dial it back, which we already know he wouldn't dial it back, you know, for obvious reasons. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, he came out in the right era. I've seen people try to back cancel his stuff because you know he uses a lot of choice language that you know you get flagged for hard as hell now. He came out at the best possible time he could have to do what it is he did. You know what I mean? So you know, so now like big picture wise, right? So I asked this question because I didn't want any of us to cop out here, right? So we know at this point in Eminem's career